some of their agenda with the announcement of a potential deal on the Inflation Reduction Act. But that progress seems to be upsetting some Republicans, with Susan Collins telling HuffPost that that very deal could jeopardize negotiations to secure GOP support for the Respect for Marriage Act, which would recognize same-sex marriage on a federal level. Senator Tammy Baldwin is telling reporters that more Republican senators have privately told her they'll support the bill, despite not announcing that support publicly. Let's bring in Jim Obergefell, the lead plaintiff in the landmark Supreme Court case legalizing marriage equality, who's now running for the Ohio State House. So, Jim, what's your reaction here when we have a Republican senator essentially saying that this spending package could jeopardize efforts to codify marriage equality?
Well, I find that just appalling that they would use something completely unrelated to potentially harm millions of marriages across the country. Our marriages deserve to exist. They deserve respect, just like any other marriage. And I think it's terrible that they would potentially harm us, just because they did not get their way on something else. And especially when this is a party that claims they are pro-family. Well, there are few things that are as pro-family as voting to protect marriages and families. So I think it's very sad that they would potentially do this and hold up the vote on, or refuse to vote on, the Respect for Marriage Act.
And we've heard from Republicans that this is unnecessary because marriage equality is currently the law of the land. But we saw what happened with Roe, right?
Correct. The fact that it's the law of the land today doesn't mean it will be tomorrow or next year. I mean, we have a Supreme Court, we have justices who have made it clear that they do not want marriage equality. They do not believe marriage equality is the right thing. They don't believe that that decision was handed down correctly. So when we know that, how on earth can anyone say marriage equality is safe? We have to do this. We have to protect the rights that we have enjoyed, that we deserve as Americans and as human beings. So while we might not lose it tomorrow, we certainly could lose it in the future. And now is the time to actually take action to make sure our marriages are protected and respected nationwide.
Well, looking ahead to the next Supreme Court term, we're going to see a case of 303 Creative LLC v. Elenis that's brought by a Colorado graphic designer who says creating a website celebrating a same-sex wedding violates the designer's free speech rights. And a former federal prosecutor wrote that the road towards stripping LGBTQ people of their right to marry may be paved this fall or winter with this case. What could a conservative court likely do here?
Well, I'm certainly concerned about what this extreme right court will do. I could absolutely see them ruling in favor of that website designer, and to say that our marriages somehow harm their religious beliefs. You know, this road towards religion, religious freedom being under attack, religious liberty being under attack. I mean, Justice Alito just made these comments in Rome as well, that religious liberty is under attack. Well, I'm not aware of anywhere in the United States where any person is prevented from practicing the religion of their choice in their home or at their house of worship. The government is not infringing on their right to practice their religion. But when their religion is used to harm others in the public sphere, that is not religious liberty. That is giving preference to one person's religion or their interpretation of their religion in the public sphere to harm others or to deny things to others. And that is not religious liberty. That is wrong.
You just mentioned those comments. Let's go ahead and play some of them. Comments from Supreme Court Justice Alito on that Roe decision.
I had the honor this term of writing, I think, the only Supreme Court decision in the history of that institution that has been lambasted by a whole string of foreign leaders. One of these was former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, but he paid the price. What really wounded me was when the Duke of Sussex addressed the United Nations and seemed to compare the decision, whose name may not be spoken, with the Russian attack on Ukraine.
Do these comments to you underscore how much the court has shifted?
Oh, without a doubt. This court has shifted so far to the right that it doesn't represent the United States. It does not represent the people of this country. I mean, more than, 71% of Americans favor marriage equality, and they continue to go after marriage equality. A majority of Americans favored abortion rights, and yet they took that right away. And I find it laughable that he's complaining about foreign leaders, people around the world, commenting on our Supreme Court taking away a right that court had previously affirmed. We are supposed to be the light of freedom in this nation, and to take rights away, well, I'm sorry, that is not freedom. And we deserve, I think in some ways, we deserve for those other leaders to comment on that step. And so, yes, I mean, this court certainly has gone much further to the right, and I think we should be concerned about many of the rights we have enjoyed and take for granted, especially much of the progress we have made in civil rights.
I want to ask you before we go, your reaction to news that Representative Glen Thompson attended his son's same-sex wedding just days after voting against that bill to protect marriage equality on the federal level. So what does it say when we have some members of Congress voting against seemingly the interests of their own family members?
I don't understand that in any way, shape, or form, Yasmin. Why on earth would you vote against something that actually protects your son 3 days before you go to your son's wedding? I don't know how his son handled that. I honestly don't know how I would have reacted to a family member voting against the existence of my marriage. I'm not sure how I would have reacted when they showed up at that wedding. So I give the son credit. But I find that unbelievable, hard to explain, and I think what a terrible thing to do to your son. You're supposed to love your children, and you're supposed to want them to be happy and build a life where they're happy and loved, and yet here you are on one hand going to the wedding, but on the other hand saying, well, you know what, I don't think that marriage should exist in all 50 states. Because if Obergefell v. Hodges is overturned and the Respect for Marriage Act does not become law, well, that's exactly what he is telling his son, that he doesn't care if his son's wedding exists in all 50 states. He wants his son's wedding to disappear simply by crossing a border within our nation. And I really find that hard to understand.
A lot of emotions here. All right, Jim Obergefell, thanks so much.